Welcome to Crisis in Perception, where we examine the systems shaping our world, one book at a time. Today, we're diving into James C. Scott's Seeing Like a State. Now, this is a really powerful book that asks a simple question. How do governments try to take our complex, messy reality and make it simple enough to actually manage?
Right from the start, the book hits you with this quote, and it really sets a cautious tone, doesn't it? It gets you thinking, okay, when we try to create this perfect, clean order, what are we actually losing? What's being eroded in the process?
All right, so to really get what this book is about, we have to try and see the world from the state's point of view. Think about the massive challenge they face. How on earth do you govern a society that's just naturally chaotic, super complex, and from way up high, totally, well, illegible?
Scott's point is that, for most of history, the state was basically flying blind. It couldn't really see its own people. It didn't have a good map of who owned what, where they lived, or even what their names were. Just try to imagine that. How do you collect taxes or raise an army if you don't even have a list of names? It makes governing effectively, well, pretty much impossible.
Okay, so to fix this whole blindness problem, the modern state had to come up with something. It needed a powerful set of tools, kind of like a giant pair of glasses to make society finally visible and, understandable from the top down.
And this brings us to the absolute core concept of the book, legibility. So what is it? Well, it's the process of taking all that messy, local, chaotic reality and basically translating it into a standardized, readable format. You can almost picture it like laying a neat grid over the whole of society, just so that officials can easily count things, measure them, and ultimately manage them.
You can see exactly how this translation process works right here. Over on one side, you've got the real world, complex, local, full of context. And on the other, the state's simplified, synoptic view. So, for example, a real forest, with all its amazing biodiversity, just becomes a neat grid of commercially valuable trees. Or think about a community where names are fluid. Suddenly, everyone gets a permanent, official last name stamped on them. And here's another perfect example of that same logic. You can see the difference, right? An organic settlement that just grew over time versus a perfectly planned, gridded village. Once you see this pattern, you see it everywhere, from standardizing weights and measures to the actual layout of our cities. It's all about one thing, making everything uniform so it can be managed.
But here's the catch. This whole process of simplification, of standardizing everything, it's not a neutral act, not at all. There's always something vital that gets lost in the translation.
Scott actually has a name for this thing that gets lost. He borrows it from the ancient Greeks, metis. So what is metis? It's basically practical, on-the-ground wisdom. It's all those skills and that kind of intelligence that allows a society to actually function and adapt. But, and this is key, you can't just write it down in a manual.
You just can't codify metis. It's all that informal, improvisational knowledge that makes a factory really run or a farm actually productive. Scott gives this brilliant example, a work-to-rule strike. When workers decide to do only what's in the official rule book and nothing more, the whole system just grinds to a halt. And that proves it, right? The formal rules are never enough. They completely depend on the informal know-how, the metis, of the people doing the actual work.
And this leads us right to the book's central warning. I think the best way to understand it is with a really powerful metaphor, the map versus the actual land it's supposed to represent.
So the big question is, what happens when a state falls in love with its own simplified map? What happens when it becomes so confident in that map that it actually tries to remake the messy, complex reality, the land itself, to fit the grid? Well, this is where legibility can become incredibly dangerous, especially when you mix it with a certain kind of ideological belief.
Scott calls this high modernist ideology. And it's basically the supreme self-confidence and almost religious faith in our ability to rationally design a perfect new social order from scratch using science and technology. It's the belief that the simplified map isn't just a handy tool. No, it's better than the messy reality it came from. And when you combine that powerful idea with an authoritarian state that can enforce it, well, the results can be absolutely catastrophic.
And Scott shows there's this predictable path to catastrophe. It goes something like this. Step 1. Reality gets simplified into a nice, legible map. Step 2. The state, completely captivated by this high modernist vision, adopts the map as its perfect blueprint. Step 3. An authoritarian government uses its power to force society to conform to that blueprint. And the final step? Failure. These grand schemes, whether it's collective farming or building a brand new city from a plan, they often just collapse. Why? Because in trying to force reality to fit the map, they destroy the very local knowledge, the mitos, that made the old systems resilient and functional to begin with.
Now, it's really important to get this. Legibility itself isn't good or bad. It's a neutral tool. It can be used for good things like public health, tracking a disease. But it can also be used for something far more sinister. I mean, take the chilling example of the Netherlands during World War II. The Dutch state had incredibly detailed records, which made its population exceptionally legible. When the Nazi authorities occupied the country, that very legibility became a weapon. It gave them the information they needed to carry out their murderous plans with a terrifying, brutal efficiency. The state's map, it amplified its capacity for evil.
So, when you put it all together, Scott's work really gives us this powerful new lens, a new way to see all the systems of simplification that are constantly at work, shaping our world.
What the book really brings to light is this constant, ongoing tension, right? Between these huge, standardized, top-down plans and the messy, complex, local realities they're trying to control. It's like a perpetual struggle between the grid and the ground.
And you know what? This drive for legibility, it's not just about governments, not by a long shot. The exact same logic is at the heart of large-scale capitalism, of any massive, centralized organization. I mean, just think about the big tech platforms today. What do? They take our messy, complicated human lives and interactions and simplify them into clean data points and algorithms. Why? So they can be managed, predicted, and, of course, monetized.
So in the end, the book leaves us with this really critical question for our own time. How do we design systems that can actually benefit from the clarity that a simplified map can give us, without falling so in love with that map that we become completely blind to the complex, living, breathing reality of the land itself?
For the full, long-form deep dive into this book and its ideas, follow the link in the description.
If you enjoy this kind of systems-level analysis, please like, subscribe, and comment with books or topics you'd like us to explore next.